So we are going to be discussing about science parks, incubators, and other innovation areas, and what is the role in driving growth. We have a very interesting and varied panel here. I will introduce them to you very briefly. Throughout the morning, we've heard a number of interesting insights and inputs, and I will pick up on one of them, where we were reminded that in Europe we are, when it comes to the flow of knowledge and technology, pretty good in terms of the inputs, but pretty insufficiently performing when it comes to the outputs. Well, that is exactly where we come in. We are the actors and the agents that have to take care of developing these outputs. We are only some of the agents acting in this realm, but I believe that we are pretty important because of our history, because of the actual size of our industry, which has developed greatly in in Europe. And the panel today is going to, at least I hope so, it's going to approach and address this particular tool, science parks and incubators, from different perspectives. Because, look, a number of years ago, I'm being optimistic perhaps, a number of decades ago, it was anathema to think that the tool science park could be developed in areas that were not already developed technologically. So, technologically speaking, underdeveloped regions were supposed not to be able to develop these tools. And that was probably true then, because we only knew one or two models of science parks. We know better today. We have developed a number of other models that have enabled us to successfully build this type of tool in many other regions. I'm not extending myself now to the world. I represent a worldwide association, the ISP, but referring only to Europe, where that's going to be respecting this order as you have it on the screen. So without further ado, I will ask Gordana Grkovic, Belgrade Science Park, to share her experiences with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Luis.
By the way, you have 8 to 10 minutes, max 10.
Okay, okay, it's enough. Thank you. Let me thank you. Thanks to Joint Research Center. Giancarlo, thank you very much for everything. My team is here and we try to learn more. When we speak about our experience, Science Technology Park Belgrade is first science and technology park in Serbia. And we started 2015 in partnership, Government of Republic of Serbia, City of Belgrade and University of Belgrade with support of Swiss government. And our aims encourage young people to start their own business, help development and support development of growing technology companies, high-tech sector, development of innovation, increase of export, and increase of youth employment. When we started in 2015, it was a huge task in front of us. You can imagine, we have to catch up time, more than 20 years. We have to develop a model appropriate to our conditions. You couldn't replicate. We learn a lot from European examples and best practice examples, but we couldn't replicate model from Barcelona, from Zurich, from Berlin. We have to develop model appropriate to our conditions. In parallel, we have to develop transparent model to attracting companies. And finally, we have to develop our capacity of my team. But most difficult is how we can develop services and follow high-tech sector. You can imagine that sector is growing really very fast. And you have to develop our capacity and our services to follow them. Science Park is not only infrastructure. It is not renting the space. It is more than that. And we develop a lot of different services like a lean methodology for startups, like soft landing program for international companies, like junior HR program to help companies find appropriate and best educated young people. And it is not easy, it is process, it asks time. But after 2.5 years, we have results like this. You can see that we have now more than 60 companies, 62 companies like tenants in our science park, more than 500 engineers. I would like to stress something here, why this is public organization. Why is public sector important in this case? I will give you some example. First of all, my team and me started 10 years ago small incubation program at Faculty of Technical Engineering. We started in limited space with 6 small offices with 6 startup companies in that moment, and it was really frustrated in that time, 2008, without any fund in Serbia for incubators, without any funds for innovation companies, for startups. It was really difficult to start, but we faced with enormous potential in that young, educated people for innovation. And during the time, you can see from 2008, everything increased, number of startups. You can see income of our companies in 2014, increased income. You can see that their export reached 75%. 2014, in parallel, government finished construction process of our science technology park, and these results encourage us to offer a model to government for development of science technology park. What happened after that, you can see here. Please look at last 2 years, 2016 and 2017. This is increase of income, but not only increase, something like jump, because we have here alumni companies from Incubator, and we have here companies, 60 companies in Science Technology Park, startups and technology growing companies. It is results like that. And because that we say that public sector is really important. Why? Because we have now, you can see that we have now organizations capable to generate more and more innovation, more and more startups each year. More and more employment, increase export. You can see this is income of our companies and export. This is result, this is our potential. This is potential of Balkan countries. I really believe that. Next is, yes, in parallel, we try to do different activities. We started pilot program for pilot entrepreneurship program for students at Faculty of Mathematical Faculty. We help our colleagues in Niš, Faculty of Electronic Engineering and government to set up startup center Niš, replicate our business incubation model. We set up startup center Niš, and first 6 companies start work there. You can see our community. This is our startup community. This is our companies. You can see a lot of, we organize a lot of conferences and events for public awareness. And you can see that last month in Science Technology Park Belgrade, we have Prime Minister, she opened a new innovation laboratory with support of Swiss government. This is our community. And we are thinking that our community is really strong now. And if we look at new role of Science Park in S3 strategy, we develop very strong relationship with government, with ministries, with City of Belgrade. We develop a lot of services for companies. We have now critical mass of companies. You can imagine we have 60 tenants. We have 60 tenants in Science Park, and more than 40 alumni companies from incubation process from technical faculties. We have network more than 100 companies. And we work very close with faculties, transfer knowledge and technologies, process, asking time, asking skills. And we started first different events or conferences or some, for example, different awareness and education process with non-governmental organization. And we are capable now to help government in entrepreneurial discovery process. Of course, it is new process in Serbia. We are at the beginning phase. We couldn't speak now about experience because we don't have experience yet in that part. Victor already mentioned that. But we really have good community to help this part and support this part. And it is our position now, and we have a lot of experience with companies and in development service for them. My colleagues are here and learn about S3 strategy, methodology, and etc. Thanks to GRC, my colleague Maria was last month in Ljubljana at the training and learned a lot about processes. And we are now at place and ready for that. Luis, my time. Yeah. Yes, okay. Thank you.
You have been very disciplined. I saw also with interest the last scheme where once again we see a representation of the science park at the very center of what used to be the triple helix and is now the quadruple helix because, of course, we have added the civil society to it. So Alessandro Fazio from JRC fell ill yesterday, I was told. He couldn't make it today. So we're going to jump from Belgrade to Trieste, a great city, which, well, I'm a writer, I'm an author myself, so it is the city of Area Science Park, but to me, it is and it always will be the city of Italo Svevo and James Joyce and Umberto Sava. But having said that aside, Professor Paoletti is going to tell us about Area Science Park.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And really, thank you for the organizer for inviting me here. I should start with the word that this morning Vladimir Shuha has highlighted, that is place. Place, I think, was in a way at the start of the experience of Area Science Park. In these days, we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of establishment of our science park in Trieste. The history is maybe somewhat different from what we just heard from Gordana and also from what we are going to hear from the other speakers, even the would-be experience, like in Milan, you know. The experience of Trieste can be useful. I believe it can be useful, but I must say that it has, not in a shy way, some peculiarity. The origin of the Science Park of Trieste keeps the roots in the fact that the percentage of scientists and researchers in the province of Trieste is 32 per 1,000, compared with an average in Europe of 8 per 1,000, which means that especially after the Second World War, there has been a concentration of national and international research institutions in that very small concentrated areas. That is the first point to be taken into account. The second one is the fact that in a famous speech by Winston Churchill, he said some 80 years ago that Iron Curtain is running in Europe from Berlin to Trieste. And today, of course, we are happily here together, but in the 70s, still, there were some problems. For instance, the border issue between Italy and Yugoslavia was not yet settled. It was settled in 1973. So this brings a lot of specificity to the origin of why the Italian government in 1978 decided to establish a science park in Trieste. Science Park, Area Science Park, is a national governmental institution. Italy has 20 national research agencies for physics, for astrophysics, astronomy, for agriculture, environment, geophysics, and AREA is the only one which, as a national agency, is devoted to innovation. So this is the first peculiarity of this science park. AREA started as a science park in two places. It started here, in this small, I would say comparatively small campus, which was a refugee camp. This is also, I mean, I think these details are somewhat important in the history. And this was transformed into the first campus of Area Science Park. A few years later, the government decided to undergo the building of the National Synchrotron Radiation Facility, which you see in the second campus. And you see here, there is the circular building where the synchrotron is located, and then below it there is the newest machine, which is a free electron laser. It's called Fermi. The synchrotron is called Elettra, and the free electron laser is called Fermi. Is only one of the 4 existing free electron lasers in the world. And so this is highlighted here just to show that one of the first choices that the government, the national government and the local government decided to start the science park was to have important scientific institution. The second one, to be established more or less in the same years, is in the, let's say, old campus, which is the International Center of Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. So the area of physics and material science on one side, and the area of biology and biomedical and biomedicine on the other, were the two big pillars on which the science park started. Today, the science park hosts 2,600 people, 8 research centers, and about 80 companies. Essentially, all of them are advanced technologies in different fields, from ICT and physics and biotechnology and biomedicine. However, this is the R&D, which we use as a motto for Area Science Park, where the ampersand in between research, but also resources to create knowledge, and on the other side, the D for knowledge to drive development. So this is, in a way, the evolution of the idea of Science Park that has taken place over the years. The new logo of our Area Science Park has 4 colors, which identify on the green one the campus. So this was the original Science Park. This was the origin of the activity. But now, and then in a way on the extreme right, the blue one indicates the platform, the scientific and technological platform, synchrotron, to give name. The other one will be genomics and epigenomics and advanced microscopies, cryo-electron microscopy, and so on. So, of course, this is in a circular activity and cross-fertilization between activities. In between, there is business creation and innovation. Innovation is carried on through an in-house company, it's called Innovation Factory, which already analyzed more than 1,600 business ideas. However, this morning I add as a point to one of the discussion of this morning where it was said, what are, again, a question by Vladimir Shuha, failure? How can we act against failure, or how can we turn in failure not in a dramatic event? The idea that Innovation Factory, that area through Innovation Factory has undertaken, was not to go through kind of business Darwinism. So the idea was not to let thousands and thousands of companies be established and then many of them, they will die and just a few survive. The idea was and is to follow as much as possible within our possibilities to follow the real intention of scientists, researchers, or young entrepreneurs. In some cases, for instance, some ideas will never turn into a company. They may not need to become a startup and so, because in many cases, a fruitful collaboration between big or medium-sized or big companies can be more fruitful for both for the companies and for university. So the idea is to let a smaller number of company grow, but follow them more carefully so that the rate of failure be lower. And this has proven to be really a great success. Next is location. Luckily, from '89, the world has changed in Europe and in the world. And so the location of Trieste at the very end of the Adriatic Sea and the Mediterranean is an ideal point for, and this is the history. So of course, as Luis said, Joyce and so on. So there is a long tradition, of course, cultural tradition in the town of opening to the Western Balkans and Central Eastern Europe. And for instance, this is why AREA has taken the lead of the innovation part of the macro-regional, Adriatic-Ionian macro-regional activity in innovation, being the hub of a network which goes all around. And in particular, for instance, the Croatian government has identified AREA Science Park as a partner to help Croatia to build up an innovation system. So this is an evolution of a science park. Of course, I can admit that it is a very peculiar situation, being a national governmental institution. It may have some benefit, but believe me, also there are a lot of drawbacks. And so progressively, in 40 years, AREA has changed from just, between brackets, a science park into an actor of innovation. And this is the latest, this is my last slide, and this is, so AREA prepared a big system to the regional government, to the Italian Ministry of Science and Technology, and Italian Ministry of Economy, and this is called Argo System, in which was identified by the Italian government as a new method of driving innovation. And for each of the colors you have seen before, science park, business creation, innovation, high-tech services, there are areas of evolution of this system. The whole region, our region is a very small one, 1.2 million, but the whole region was chosen as a kind of test, field test for developing an integrated system for innovation to be exported at the national level and hopefully maybe also at the international one. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sergio. I know the project of Trieste pretty well. In fact, I used to be a member of an advisory committee to redefine the strategy of the park for a couple of years. And I didn't know, however, that the original campus in Padriciano used to be a refugee camp. I think I agree with him, those details are important. In fact, Russian novelist Vladimir Nabokov used to teach his writing students about the importance of details in the novel, and he called them the divine details. Pay attention to the divine details. And he was right. That makes a difference between good novels and vulgar novels. Next, you see I'm always trying to introduce literature with one excuse or another in my presentations. So we move to the other part of northern Italy, Alberto Mina from Milan, a very interesting project that is now being cooked somehow. So we are going to eagerly hear what you have to say.
So thank you, Luis, for your presentation and for your assistance in this period that we are at the beginning of a complex project. And thank you to Giancarlo and to GRC for the invitation, but particularly for the relationship. We started the relationship at the beginning of this project, which was the Expo Milan 2015. Expo Milano 2015 was a successful event which took place close to the center of Milan in this area that you can see here, 1,200,000 square meters, in a space which is a very constructed along two axes. One is the decumano, according to the ancient Roman camps, and the cardo, which is the other axe. So a very homogeneous area that at the beginning was a greenfield. This is very important because now we have all the area without the temporary pavilion. You know that in one universal exposition, the national pavilions are temporary. So at the moment, we have a sort of new green land, but very infrastructured with technological services and with a very effective accessibility. And this is our task. We have to develop the legacy of this big event. I think that from this legacy, really we can judge the effectiveness of the big events. Because, you know, there are a lot of cases in the history in which big events are not so fruitful for the country they hosted that, but in other cases, so we are studying the good case. And one case for us, for instance, is the London Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, for instance, that are developing really a big infrastructure for the city. So the first point is how we are going to traduce this attempt to this project to do a new innovation hub in the North Italy. First of all, which is the key player? The key player is a public company, which is a public institutional companies shared by the national government, the regional government of Lombardy, the municipality of Milan, which is AREXPO. AREXPO is the owner of the area, and also, in a sense, the régisseur of all the process inside the area. Because we know, and this is why we are here, very glad to be here, because we know that the community doesn't start because we are close, but it starts because there are someone which animates it, but also maintain a sort of the helm of the direction of our relationship. So this is the key, and secondly, because in this case we have the public owner, which is the landlord of the area, but also, so to say, the single point for the processes. And you know that the process with the public administration, particularly in Italy, is not so easy. So to have only one point of reference is really key for our partner. Of course, we are learning from cases of success. For instance, area we have established already a good connection, because for us is a very good example in order to produce an innovation ecosystem. So the keywords of the ecosystem we know very well. We have also mentioned this day. You see, we have already 5 ILEX, not more, not only 4, but it's the same as a joke. No-profit sector, research center, business institution, and startup. So the public connection is in order to attract different actors. This multiplicity is one key element for this kind of environment. So it's an objective for us and it's a target. But on the other side, we will maintain also the vocation of the area as showcase and introduction to Italy. So a showcase for Italy, for the world, as the Expo 2015 was, but on the other side, an opportunity to get in touch with the dynamic system of production and research in Italy. So in this bilateral dimension of relationship, we see a target very important in order also to exploit our opportunity for all the country, for Italy, also in other situations and other contexts, and on the other side, in the international relationship and in so international scientific diplomacy, we see a very effective and important instrument of the system. What will be take place in the area? In order to traduce the key words that we've seen before, first of all, the national government has established 2 years ago a research center which is funded for over the next 10 years with 1.5 billion euros focused on genomics. And you know, genomics is very important for us because it's strictly connected with the theme of the Expo, because the Expo 2015 was feeding the planet energy for life. So food according to all its dimensions. And so cultural dimension, but also scientific dimension and so on. So genomics is the key aspect and knowledge about life science, and life science also for food production also, and for health, of course. And secondly, an important hospital, which is now starting with the building area, which is the Galeazzi, which is also a research center. And the third pillar or anchor is the University of Milan. So two research centers, that one Human Technopole on genomics and IRCS Galeazzi on orthopedic, and all the scientific faculties of the University of Milan are going to be transferred in that area. It's the biggest project that we have done in Italy about the university, because there is no other case in recent history. And probably you know how difficult it is to move in a university, in sense because you at the beginning have to move the mentality of the academia and so on. But it's very challenging, but it's very important. Now all the organisms have decided for the University of Milan to transform. So we have the students, approximately 20,000 students that will be in the area daily, a research center on genomics, about 1,800 people staying there during the day, and the hospital. So you know, the hospital is the research activities, but also the patients and the families and the visitors, and so approximately 7,000 people daily in the area. Another element that we are learning from your cases, from what, for instance, Luis Sanz is writing since some years, that you have to, and that is also the key concept of smart innovation, you have to be in a context which can host really the dynamicity that you bring inside of it. And these are some numbers about the environment which is characteristic for Lombardy, in the Lombardy region, and particularly for this content. So we have a lot of biotechnology research companies already in the region, different research center, and I have to say, because I'm here, of course, the GRC. GRC is absolutely 25 kilometers or something more from the Expo site. So already Lombardy region is a platform for innovation and research in this field. And this is another element that we want to cultivate very, very strictly, because is an asset of the location of our park. And another aspect is the accessibility of the place, because place is crucial as in a square. So, and also here we can see the dimension of the public investment for the event of Expo, because here we have the high-speed train station inside the area. It means that you can reach Rome in 3 hours, Naples in 4 hours, Venice in 2 hours and a half, Turin in 45 minutes. So a very unique accessibility in order to bring people from Italy in the place, but also the world to Italy, since this, from this platform. On the other side, the two airports very close, and the metro station which connected the area with the center of Milan in 30 minutes. So accessibility of the place is another fundamental element. But there is another aspect that we want to start now at the beginning of the process. Not only that, to create community, starting from developing the relationship that we have already developed for the Expo, or starting from them with the other companies, but to make each aspect of our project an opportunity for a living lab. So starting from, I think in 2-3 weeks, we'll public a public call in order to attract companies that want to be part of an experiment, of a laboratory of some aspect of our project. For instance, construction of buildings, energy management, and services correlated to some environmental aspect and so on. This is another way that, according to us, our project is starting now. It's not the output, the community, but the community is the origin of the project, and also community between private sector and public institution and research center and young community. I have to say that the project of the master plan has been developed is developing by one of the biggest developer in the world, which is the Australian Land Lease, and which was selected with a public tender, international public tender, and this is another fundamental element. There is a private big partner with a big and huge experience in redeveloping portions of cities in the world, so with a big experience and also a big vision. And this is another four fundamental element. Consider that the Land Lease bring with it approximately 1.5 billion euro as finance for the project. It means also that they have to be able to make it profitable in as soon as possible. And this is another particular fundamental element in order to respect time. So this is a glance of the area. The Decumano will be transformed in one of the biggest linear park in Europe, because half of the area will be green. And the green is not only an ornamental aspect, but also a space of research for biology and for genomics, but also attracting for good people. Of course, when we develop the area, also with the residential facilities, we expect that in the next 10, 12 years, the area will host daily 80,000 people daily. It means a new small town close to the big town, which is Milan. So for us, it's important that it could be, it could maintain the attractiveness for people outside the small town in order to make to give them opportunities to knowledge, but also to relax, to culture, so to make it attractive. Another aspect which Luis Sanz always underscores is the attractiveness for innovation is the attractiveness for talents. So we have to maintain the attractiveness around the world for all the area. These are some images of the project, and of course this is another case of Living Lab. So what we are testing, will be testing is the driverless mobility inside the area and so on. This is some note of the schedule time, but of course what we are seeing now is that the interest of the area is demonstrated by the fact that more than 60 international companies have already declared their interest to be there. So I think that is a good first step, and particularly in the partnership with a lot of you, I think that we can maintain our vision and also our time schedule. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alberto. I think that by now you have understood that this project in particular is quite unique because it starts from a precedent big reality, which was the Universal Expo, and that implies already an important element in terms of size, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of budget. And if I say that, it's because those of you who may be now busy starting other projects from scratch or nearly from scratch, you should not feel discouraged by the fact of the size that Alberto was explaining. There is also room, and plenty of room, for these other projects. There are not many cities that can say, I have a Universal Expo, and now what am I going to do with it? Let's build an important science park. Next, we move now from Italy to Greece, and we have Paris Kokoritsikos, a man with a great experience, a private investor himself in this type of activities and a consultant to many projects in the world, collaborator of ISP for many years, and they do have now a very interesting project going on in Thessaloniki, and I hope he's going to be telling us about it. Paris, another one of those formidable Greek names, Paris, Theologos, those things.
Well, thank you, Louis, and thank you, JRC. It's always a pleasure to be back in Sofia. I started working actually as a scientist back in the 80s while working for programs of the European Commission with the Academy of Sciences under the Comecon EU cooperation at that time, even before the economic and social changes of the 90s. So it's a pleasure to be here. So my presentation is about, it's a methodological presentation for combining science park planning principles based on the experience we have gathered with the ASP and the over 400 practical experiences from the members of the ASP over the last 40 years, and combining the smart specialization principles that were introduced by the European Commission the last years. So we had a good chance for our next phase of planning for the Science Park of Thessaloniki, which phase started back in '92, to try to apply this methodology, which is presented here. Actually, as a methodology was presented last year in the JRC event, Science Parks in Thessaloniki event. And now I'm presenting the results of the implementation of this methodology after 1 year. So this is a very general experience from the science park planning. If it's the strongest impact on innovation and economic development is where there is a balanced interest between public sector and private sector investment. Usually, science parks start with a private sector, with a public sector interest. And if remain as a public sector interest and remain science or too much basic science parks, then they don't have too much impact on innovation and entrepreneurship. When they start with too much private sector investment, they tend to become rather business parks than science and technology parks. Of course, one could add another dimension with time and follow developments like Area Science Park, which started as a state science park, but it started moving towards innovation and incorporating the business sector and actually moving to the center of the impact, where it's the joint interest of the private and public sector, and we have many examples like that. So we had the challenge in Thessaloniki, where we started the science park back in '92, 25,000 square meter science park. At that time, research was very strong. Private sector R&D activity was very weak. So this science park became a victim of the success of the science people. They started 60, there are 1,000 now. It's one of the most successful, the Center for Research and Technology Hellas, one of the most successful institutes in Europe, providing a lot of R&D activity and applied R&D and contracted R&D for US, for Australian, for EU companies and so on. In the meantime, because the space was covered totally by science, incubators and other institutions were created outside of the science park. So we have an ICT park, 4 incubators, including our incubator for growth and so on. So now we are at the critical stage to plan the next phase, which is the new science park for 2040. And we had in our hands the experience of the previous years. Actually, it was an experience that created more than 300 companies around the park, but not inside the park, and many scientific research institutes. But also because of crisis, a lot of companies have really invested in R&D, and the companies that survived the Greek crisis are really quite strong with R&D products, and we'll explain them. And the idea was at this point to focus the development of the next phase of the science park based on the needs of the industry and not on the needs of the researchers. So what we did, we tried to mingle the industry dynamics, the global trends and practices, the R&D excellence, and of course, the background of that was the smart specialization strategy of the region of Central Macedonia. And we put in a diagram where companies were very strong in technology and also very competitive internationally. Researchers which had projects with TRL above 5 or 6, which are also falling in that category. And we decided to create the science park based only on the combination of R&D and companies that fall into these 2 categories. The mega projects category, which I will explain what it is, and the cluster projects. There are some other areas where education and research is low, but the industry dynamics is high. So what is needed there is more of a competence. And when everything is low, we said, we forget it. Textile, no strong research, no strong companies, goodbye. Although it was important for the region, we said, no more, we don't take any more action on textile industry. So based on that, we created what we call the mega projects idea, and we had groups of companies that worked with the research institutes and the research labs that they selected. They were working already together, and they said, we will collocate together to develop our new projects and our new products together. And mostly, these are in the advanced materials and manufacturing processes, and the flexible and organic nanotechnology applications, and clean energy solutions, while we have some areas like competence for logistics and business challenges, where we created a center for improving the knowledge of the industry on the advances of logistics. We don't have time, so I will just present you 2 examples of mega projects. A mega project is a building of about 5,000 square meters, where all the labs, like from the mechanical engineering department, machine elements and machine design and physical metallurgy, and laboratories from Texas A&M University. I have to point here that there are some international universities which are partners in this project, including KIT, Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and Texas A&M, which has a strong and long-time cooperation with these departments. And They are collocating their R&D activities, their main equipment for laser smelting, 3D printing, rapid prototyping, towards particular products. Well, I don't want to go into detail about products, but some drones and some other things are included in that. Alumil is one, probably you know this company. It has industries all over the Western and Eastern Balkan region in aluminum, but based on its R&D potential and activity, it won the Google building in New York based on some very hard terms of Google that the whole building will be heated by the fans of the computers in New York. And they produced the solution in an international competition that used, of course, these laboratories for the solution. So this is one building for advanced materials and manufacturing. I will not go throughout all the cases. I will just show you the competence center for logistics. And logistics is not an issue of research. It's about training the industry about all the changes that are coming up from the big data, from the artificial intelligence, from the Internet of Things, from RFID solutions, and coping up with all these solutions that should be applied throughout horizontally to the industry, whether it's food industry or manufacturing or apparel or whatever. So this is a competence center for training and transfer of know-how, where again, Texas A&M and some other institutions, but also a European network, ALICE, on the Alliance for Logistics Innovation through collaboration in Europe, Fraport, and some other institutions are partners. This is, it's a big land. I thought I couldn't present more slides on that. But practically at this point, we have about 70 companies and 19 laboratories as partners to that. The initial phases are sponsored by major companies, National Bank of Greece, Kliman, which is a company in our region having 2% of the world elevators market, Sunlight, the second biggest European military batteries company, and so on. The land is next to the airport of Thessaloniki, and phase one is about 25,000 square meters, over 80 hectares, and the overall plan is about 200,000 square meters in the next 25 years. It's called Thesintech, but lands and technical solutions is not what is interesting for us. It's the partnership that was created among the 15 regional stakeholders, foreign stakeholders like IASP, Texas A&M, KIT, La Salle from Barcelona, and the actual interest of the industries to collocate, and it's about location, with the researchers that they are close to the industry and they will really want to work for the industry rather than produce papers and just patents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paris. We are going to close the exposition of cases and experiences moving to Slovenia, capital city, Ljubljana, and we have Marjana Majerič that is going to be telling us about Ljubljana Technology Park. Another very interesting experience. Floor is yours.
Distinguished guests, dear audience, dear friends, GRC, ISP, so I'm really glad to be here to present a technology park, but actually I would more go in detail about sharing the practice because I think that it's really important because collaboration and sharing is something that gives us the strength, and hearing that we have Europe with 2 speeds and concluding those countries they would join to let's say European Union, I think that I would like to give them courage that we are same side, and that we would like to help them to get there to be, let's say, on the side that we are now, or even better. Actually, Technology Park of Ljubljana and is largest innovation ecosystem for commercialization of knowledge and technology in Southeastern Europe. And we are proud that we are more than, let's say, 20 years alive. Why I'm saying so? Because we are not on the budget of the government, although that we are having trustful, let's say, owners as municipality of Ljubljana, that is helping then 3 biggest national institutes, Institute of Jožef Stefan, National Institute for Biology, National Institute for Chemistry, and 3 big companies as Sanz, pharmaceutical leader, Iskra as, let's say, logistic center, and smart city oriented company, and Iskratel for ICT and telecommunication. As I said, we are not on budget. So we are, let's say, facing the same struggles as our companies. So surviving on the market, listening what is going on the market. And these days we have more than 330 companies within Technology Park. We are, let's say, yearly having more than 30 companies that are coming on board. And of course, what we are proud of is that they are making more than 400 million euro revenue and giving big impact through tax-paying value-added, let's say, and what is most important, they are giving high added value jobs for young people, giving them perspective, and let's say with that stopping the brain drain that I think in all area of Western Balkan is really big. So if I'm going, let's say, sharing our experience, I would say that what is most important is that having the experience with our strong startup community and of course SMEs, we took approach of the lean methodology. And with that, we had really strong, let's say, feedback, how important is to listen what is going on, where are the problems, where are the needs. And of course, having in mind and managing all the stakeholders and having, let's say, in mind that quadruple helix is crucial. So finding the overcrossing needs and let's say starting to let's say making the change, we thought how to approach. And of course, the strategy were written by the governments, and approaching the government, it was all the time, you are not in that budget, you're not in this budget. So we said we will show that everything is possible with the smallest step. So we started with pilot approach. So we, let's say, used European money. So we used the private-public partnership. So we even used our own money. We had the donators, and what was most important, every pilot that we did, it was, let's say, launched really loudly, and we said, these are the measures that we would like to, and we put the measures behind. So every pilot showed us the result. And having in mind and on the end of the pilot showing the really great result, governments start to listen. And I'm really proud to say that most of the, let's say, people are saying, oh, government, they are not, so they don't like strategies. But we have really great collaboration with our government, with our ministries, and I'm proud of that because we are doing top-down and bottom-up approach, and I think the smart specialization that we went through and helped them even with the entrepreneurial discovery process, I think this was really important. But again, let's say high performance acting and activities are really crucial in, let's say, different steps. One, of course, is co-development of strategies and frameworks. I mentioned smart specialization. I would like to point out that this was not only one part. the most important part was to prepare the implementary, let's say, entities to fulfill those strategies. So not only workshops about regional development, because with that we raised awareness of people how this regional and collaborative approach is crucial, but what was important to empower the implementation institutions for having the high impact services. So it's not just taking here and there possibility of getting the finance, but develop the really systematic and long-going initiatives with most important part, it's self-reflection, how these, let's say, initiatives and programs are affecting end users and making this strategy working for the people and for the citizens of not only our country, but Europe as such. So beside of that, we, let's say, developed really strong services for fostering collaboration, because I think that our part at Western Balkan has a gene of not collaborating, so egos are really big, so we know everything. And starting showing how we can collaborate, especially the ministries with the ministries with each other, because it's like Ministry for Education is not talking to Ministry for Economic Affairs because they're not from the same political part, and the political parts are falling apart within 1-2 years. So we said it's really crucial to find the, let's say, forerunners, and this was on the middle management. And they were staying and they were stable. So we tried to educate, to fill, let's say, the power with that they are important for not for them and for their salaries and for their chairs they're having, but it's important for the young people, their, let's say, future of Europe and, of course, our countries. So, but on the other hand, we reflected ourselves. So we are a small market, so we said we need to do something, let's say, to collaborate, because it was really crucial that young people went out of Slovenia or even Europe, go globally. So I think that ISP, let's say, association and having partners all around the globe, being collaborative with let's say different governments, especially with China, India, Iran and Russia, we have now really great, developed really great collaboration in regards of having industrial partners in these global, let's say, hubs. What is most important, we are developing together pilots. And we are talking about technology transfer. We did it like this, not just selling the technologies, but collaborating and, let's say, bringing joint ventures, mergers and acquisitions of the companies, even, let's say, developing some research let's say practices, or even having the university exchange for 3 to 6 months between, let's say, researchers and professors. And I think this gave us strength to think about keeping the brain within Slovenia, within, let's say, European Union, and of course bringing those companies and countries to be here and to see potential. I will say honestly, we collaborate, we have really close collaboration with each of the Western Balkan countries. I'm proud of Serbians, how they're doing well. I'm proud of Montenegro. I'm proud of Macedonians. And I think it's really important, if you're giving, you're getting back. And looking for companies in Slovenia, they're doing really well. They were helped with the European Union, different, let's say, financial schemes. And those companies, talking to those companies, if you're talking where you would like to go, most of them, they would like to go Germany, Austria, and then ex-Yugoslavian countries. And that's why I'm really great that I have different technology parks, different, let's say, even the ministries that we can help each other so that these investments and these companies can help and make the joint ventures together with the Western Balkan. So smart specialization is really crucial, but again, building collaborative innovation ecosystems goes in the layers. So each layer has different language, and we need to learn this language. And of course, let's say technology parks and these intermediaries, we are in position of managing the flow of this collaboration. And again, proudly I'm saying that we develop platforms. This is a knowledge and research platform, so we have strong technology transfer offices, not only in research institutes on the universities, and they are collaborating, making the platform. So we have startup and spin-off platform, and for scale-ups and SMEs. Corporates are here because mostly the research institutes and corporates are working already now together closely. But, okay, 1 minute for make the conclusion that really what is important is that we, let's say, prepare partnering and pioneering, and everything what I said is crucial to have support. Today we heard examples of how the support is working, but let's say strategies without raising the awareness and hearing what is going on the market, and let's say somehow connect the speed in this regard is not successful. So not only technology parks, incubators, it's really important to have government, agencies, technology transfer offices, chambers of commerce, clusters, and they need to collaborate. So collaborate, collaborate, this is my message. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marjana, for this immersion in content of science and technology parks. I was recently at the Ljubljana Technology Park. It was quite impressive to actually see the atmosphere of entrepreneurs and businessmen getting together, talking together, really a live swarm of ideas and activity going on, and that is very encouraging. So we have a few minutes. What you just heard is just a flavor of the vast array of models and strategies that you can find within the industry of science and technology parks in the world, and particularly in Europe. Different strategies, different locations, different sizes, different driving engines at the beginning, central governments, regional governments, city governments, different approaches, focusing more on bigger companies, focusing more on entrepreneurs. There is practically every possibility covered. The trick here is how do I adapt all the knowledge of our industry worldwide into my particular situation, in your case, into this region of the Balkans. So we have now time for perhaps 2-3 questions, if they are not too long and the answers are not too long either. Who goes first? Please. Can you introduce yourself very briefly and then tell us whom you're addressing the question to?
Hello. My name is Vasil Kraivanov, Sofia Tech Park. My name is directed to Mrs. Majerič. I'm sorry for non-pronunciation if I don't say it correctly, sorry. So the question is, you said that when you start any pilot or any project, you define a need. So what is the biggest need at the moment and the biggest challenge for your park? Thank you.
It is really funny, but infrastructure. So we are full, 100% full, and even now we are renting. This is one part. The second part is people. So we are not only as managing part, we are lacking now for 6 to 8 people. So a lot of projects and activities. So this is one part. The second part, again, if we are looking, our companies, they are doing well. So we are traveling a lot, helping open those companies, let's say, possibilities for their growth. But mostly, I'm saying that people, well-educated people, committed people. Mostly, we can see that now, these days, it's, for example, in Slovenia, it's really easy to get a job, really good paid. So it's that part, and I don't want to stress this out because I don't want that the people from different countries would come. But again, I think this is what is most important. But on the other hand, I think that government is doing well, but how the technology and let's say speed of the technology, so implementation of the legislation, this is one part that I can see really crucial, because companies would stay in Slovenia, but they are leaving due to the fact that the legislation is not ready for this let's say, Internet of Things and this kind of things. So, short.
Thank you both. More questions, please. Microphone over there. Is there an extra microphone to give? Same drill, please. You introduce yourself and then specify the question.
Good afternoon. So my name is Driar Telshani. I'm a university professor at RIT Kosovo. And my question goes for the entire panel. Actually, anybody can answer. My question is about the data infrastructure. As we have seen also previously, one of the panelists has said that data is important and for research, and research is important for the proof of concept. So my question would be, what would be the role of the, how could the science and technology parks be used for data collection? And as we know, this is an important factor in order to avoid, for example, failures of new companies, of new startups, and also it's important for technology transfer. Thank you very much.
All right, the question has been formulated. Who wants to go? Anybody in particular? Alberto, do you want to say something?
No, only to say that the crucial for us in the sense that the Human Technopole, which is the research center funded by the government last year, is organized in 6 different departments, and 3 departments are focused and dedicated to big data management and big data infrastructure, also in order to collect them. So is one product of the science park is particularly guidelines and technologies for data management and big data management on one hand. On the other hand, how to manage the data that are produced inside the small town. So only to say that in our vision, this is a key element.
Good. Well, I'm being warned over and over again that we have to be respectful with the schedule, and apparently we don't have time for one question. Only if you promise. Sorry, now I have to say no, because I see 20 hands, it's impossible. However, I want to say something since I have the floor, and with that we will conclude, because data collection was mentioned, and of course you are probably referring to scientific data, business data, etc., but that's not the only part of the picture. There are also people's data and personal data. And we are now, we meaning many businesses and many networks, struggling with the immediate implementation of these new GDPR regulations. I don't know who had this brilliant idea. I strongly disagree as a European citizen. This is a business killer. This is a ridiculous regulation, overprotective. It's going to putting a lot of associations like ours really in a very bad situation. We have to spend money with fancy lawyers, and yet we'll never be sure whether we are doing the right thing. This is completely crazy, so I use this microphone to put my claim. Go against it. Thank you very much for your attention.